Cool. We'll try that. So yes, so not only identifying your strengths, but then figuring out how to apply those to your daily activities. So feed into those to become bigger and better version of yourself than you are today. So I'll give you some examples. My strengths after I took the Strength Finder were strategic, futuristic, communication, achiever, and competition. As I see, I have a spelling mistake on my slide because I'm up doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning, but I apologize. But so the bottom line is it'll give you this gigantic report full of all of this information on what your strengths are. It'll give you explanations as to how, being strategic means that you can identify solutions to achieve the end results that you're striving to. Futuristic means that you can see what is possible and envision greater and grander things than people sometimes around you can. Communication and being able to more effectively and efficiently communicate with other people. And then knowing that I do thrive on achieving things and I am a little competitive at heart. So I like that. And it stimulates my development and my professional activities. So now I can truly take that and apply that in a growth mindset and how I can then leverage those strengths in my day-to-day activities. I mentioned starting with vision, which you all are here today doing, getting a further degree, but then finding ways to put your skills into practice. And that can be in your current professional capacity. Selena, looking at you, in the office setting, right? And managing the business and maybe, do you know what one of your strengths might be, Selena? Do you have like a gauge on a good vibe on what one might be?
Yeah, I haven't taken the test you were just talking about, but I did take the DISC assessment and I'm a high S.
Oh,
So it's very
yeah.
stabilizing, training people, patient, that kind of thing.
Which probably I would imagine in what you're doing and coordinating the chaos that is all the customers coming in and the orders going out, and that stabilizing force put into effect can really probably help move your business forward, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
So if you don't have the opportunity to flex your strengths in your current professional capacity, I would encourage you to seek out alternate means of practice. For me, I will say it would be, as I know many of you in the room, it would be through our participation in Little Black Book Women in Business. For me, I started out as a chapter president, and then from there was asked to take on a role of leadership development as we went through vision together. Angel and I did, and I recognized the opportunity and the passion that I had for this. And so she has given me the opportunity and trusted me to try out and practice my skills in real time and in real situations. And word to the wise, as you try, you can expect to fail. Fail fast, fail hard, and learn from it so that you can pick yourself up and move on. And that is how you will truly feed your strengths and improve upon the next time you go to tackle that very same situation. Failure is it's not an option, right? For a lot of us, we feel that failure makes us vulnerable or makes us weak. But in reality, as a professional, as a person, if you think back on some of your greatest moments and your greatest moments of clarity and learning opportunities, it really comes from those moments of failure. So don't be afraid to show vulnerability. So once you know your strengths, once you find a way to put them into practice, make sure that you find a way to optimize your brand. And so that means having an authentic representation of who you are and what you aspire to become. So you don't want to try to be something that you're not. You really want to focus in on your strengths, and you want to be authentic when you're having conversations with people. rewind 10 seconds ago to when I told you I failed, and I failed hard, right? It takes courage to be able to admit when failure happens, but I am going to be authentic to myself and my capabilities, so that I can continue to build credibility, which is what we all know is so important to being able to achieve success. I feel like I'm talking too much. Let's go for a second. Other strength finders. Who has taken other strengths assessments and has learned something? Angie, I saw your hand up first. I'm going to stop sharing for a second.
Call on someone else. I've talked enough.
Oh, okay. Who else? Dave, I'm sure you've taken something.
I've taken a few over the years. I actually have my strengths finder right here in front of me. Learner is number one. Love learning and hearing more, seeing how things work together. The two big ones for me in coaching and in my leadership career has always been connectedness and arranger. Looking at how things are connected, interrelated, and then being able to arrange and make sense of things and then find the pathway forward.
Absolutely. And how have you been able to apply that in your business, and how has it worked for you?
One of the key things is for me to listen well and then really take the time to digest what's going on. I am also DISC certified and I'm a high C personality. So I can get caught up in the weeds and get too far down in the details. I have to remind myself to come back up. Hey, let me just put the general, here's the summary or the high level opinion or path forward.
And what do you do when you get caught in the weeds? How do you pull yourself back from that area?
Great question. It really depends on where I'm at the time or if I'm midstream in the middle of a conversation, but I just have to remind myself, take a deep breath, allow some space, and then really I've got to work to just get myself back up to a summary level. And it's just a conscious thing that I try and do internally.
Conscious.
I ask for help as well when I am getting stuck in the weeds.
Yeah, a conscious decision. I want to hone in on that for just a second, right? Because knowing that it's a conscious decision, that didn't just happen overnight, right? Like you had to learn that it was something that you were aware of, and then you had to learn how to control it. Can you talk a little bit about the process of uncovering that?
Sure. Actually, my mantra or my tagline for coaching is, what is the ETA on achieving your goals? And the E stands for elevate your thinking. It's just a matter of awareness. You've got to practice being self-aware, paying attention to what's around you. The humans are the only ones that can actually analyze what we're doing while we're going through the process. All other animals and species can't do that. So we have that ability to intellectualize. So it's just a matter of raising awareness. And kind of as I'm talking to you now, I'm self-analyzing as it goes.
What we're doing. Awesome. Thank you, Dave. Jessica, I see your hand up.
Sorry, I'm on my phone too because I lost internet connection on my laptop. So
What a day.
yes, I always say I'm an assessment junkie because I love learning about everything and I always want to be progressing and growing. I have taken Clifton Strengths, which is interesting that you're talking about it. I wrote it down because I tried to remember what they were. So my number one, I haven't found anyone else that has the same. And I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that means. So it's input.
Input.
I guess for me to describe it after I read everything, I also love learning. I was surprised that learner was not in my top 5. It's in my top 10, but I just crave information. I love learning about things. I want to know the details and in depth of how things work and all of that. I also had strategic, empathy, developer, and individualization. So those were my top 5. And what's interesting, I guess, is I recently have had to change careers because of some physical difficulties. I was doing occupational and speech therapy, but I'm not able to physically do that anymore because of a back issue that I'm having. So I actually went into development, which is completely the opposite probably. So still trying to figure out where those strengths fit in to this new career path.
learning to apply new strengths and different strengths to your current roles. I can absolutely relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Was there another hand up? I think I saw. No. Yes, Janice.
So I just recently took the Clifton with actually a leadership group that I'm on. For the purpose, part of the purpose was to kind of see where everybody fell and, you know, maybe some holes that we need and to tapping into everybody's strengths. So it was very helpful. We got like the free version. So just listening to all of you guys, it sounds like it would be a well spent investment to get, you know, the full report or whatever and find out what my top 10 are. My top 5, which is very interesting to me, is 4 of my 5 are in the influencing category. So I was feeling like I was really out of balance because I had none in the last 2 categories. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure that's a good thing or not. But my top 5 were communication. My second one, which is my favorite because I just love it, is woo. So I just like to say woo and that I'm high in woo. So anyway, and then belief, competition, and achiever were my next 3. So yeah, so it was very helpful. I still need to go back and look at the slide deck some more and kind of, I like the fact that it had, you know, kind of what your strengths were and then things to be mindful of as well. Like, you know, for me, not talking too much in group settings because I like to be the center of attention or whatever. So not necessarily the center of attention. I just like to talk. Anyway, so I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I found it really helpful. I thought it was really great to have our team do it so that we can kind of figure out, you know, where are we missing some pieces maybe, and maybe, you know, who do we need to add to our leadership team and that kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
highly recommend.
Thank you for sharing. And I think before I hit Jason up real quick, I think, you know, I had taken several assessments leading up to this point in my career and in my life before I took it this most recent time. And I took it and I was like, yeah, that's great information. Yeah. You know I can communicate. Sure. Right. I'm capable. I know I like competition. No problem. But I think for me, and I think probably for a lot of us, right, there comes a time when all of a sudden you have that shift in your mindset of, oh, it's a light bulb, right? Like, not only do I have this information, but it's how I use it and how I apply it to my approach and what I'm doing that really makes the difference. And then just unlocks your potential to a degree that you weren't, you were walking through life without truly leveraging your strengths to its fullest potential. So, put yourself out there and maximize your strengths, and it will be amazing what you can achieve thereafter. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I've taken a couple DISC assessments over my career, and the latest one was last year. And previously, I had scored really as a high D, but most recently it was kind of that DI. And then definitely I can see my team, the people that I work with, and customers of mine, based on their feedback and everything like that. I flex to the S a lot just based on what I have to do in my role. But when I'm operating, like a well-oiled machine, it's that high D, somewhat in that I, but never a C. And that's why anybody that works as a subordinate of mine, mostly like my assistant manager, she would be a deep C person, and I need someone like that because I had a manager one time ask me after a communication issue, "Hey, are you reading your emails?" And I said, "Well, yeah." She's like, "Well, didn't you see that?" I was like, "Well, I skimmed the email." And she's like, "Well, this is not a skimming type situation. You need to read it for content." So I've gotten kind of mixed up in that non-C type before, and it's cost me, but I've learned to kind of flex in those areas that I need to flex in. But mostly, it's that strong D or DI type.
I love that you recognize, and I'm the same way, Jason. I don't like the details. I like to just big picture and let's keep moving and rah, and I think for me, it was about not wanting to seem weak in an area, right? Like, I am capable. I can do all of these things, and I can check all these boxes, and I can be detail oriented if I want to. But when you admit it, right, it doesn't make you weak. It actually, it puts it out there, right? It empowers you. And it honestly took a little pressure off of me to not feel like I had to be perfect and high achieving in all of these areas, but I could truly focus on what I'm meant to focus on. So there was that freedom with it. I don't know if you kind of felt the same way when you had your transformation.
Definitely, 100%.
Angie, I see your hand up again.
Oh, one of the ladies was talking about the input. That's my number 3. It basically means you're really curious. So just so you know,
Awesome.
I was
think that was
giggling when,
Jessica.
it basically means you're very curious and you like to get look into different information, and sometimes, like, I know for me, I can start on a subject that has absolutely nothing to do with anything that I need to learn about, and then I'll get interested in it, and I can go down a serious rabbit hole. So that's an input person. But I was laughing when Jason was talking about the emails. Oh my gosh, it hurts my head when I get a long email. If I have to, I literally will copy and paste it in my response and go through line by line and make sure that I've responded to every single thing. And I have to look at it like 5 times to make sure that I've done it, because I'm like, oh my God, my head's gonna kill me. So completely.
We are soul sisters.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh yeah, please, can you just give me like 3 bullet points? That's all I need.
Actually, yep.
Fewer words, less words.
Dave, I see your hand up again. Did you have something else?
The 2 things, Angie, that's a great self-awareness habit to know that and force yourself to do something to compensate for it. One thing on the Clifton Strengths Finder is don't get too hung up on being labeled with one category or another. A lot of these, like learner and input, are very similar. So you may just, through the questions you answered and the way you answered it, you may leverage one over the other. So understand the relationship between all those for those of you that do the Clifton Strengths Finder. They're just nuances in each thing. They're very similar, but don't get hung up on the exact detail or label.
Don't get hung up on details or labels. Thank you, Dave. I think your audio is kind of going a little bit, but it was a great and valid point for sure. I think as we, look at this and the strengths in the context of our resumes, right? It's kind of, I think the easy thing is to think like, oh, I'll put that in my relevant skills, right? Because all of the job applications now, when you're writing your resumes, they want to know what you're proficient at and what your skills are. So the tendency is to just add those in the bullet points and just move on and be done with it. But what's really important to do, and whether you're using your resume for a career purpose or for, applying to school or a nonprofit board or role, there's so many different applications and uses for that resume. But it's really a tool to showcase your strengths, right? So for me, what was an example of a time when I used my communication skill effectively to be able to achieve a goal for an organization or a meeting that was taking place? So for me, as I was going through the exercise of identifying, what are the 5 most fabulous things that I have achieved over the course of my career, right? Or the most memorable moments that were impactful for me. I can think back to actually an LBB meeting from 2018, I think it was. And I know, right, Alicia, I see your face. Yeah. It was that memorable. It stuck with me. And I was coordinating a members only meeting. And the topic of the meeting was, we wanted everyone to bring in their problems, and we wanted to try to solve some of their biggest challenges and help them overcome where they were at and what they were stuck on. I walked into that meeting not knowing who we were going to talk to or what we were going to talk about. I brought in a Post-it board and a marker. And from there, it was all about asking questions and listening and communicating effectively to get people in the room to draw out and provide answers and input to help move these women and their businesses forward. And I will tell you, it was probably 90 of the most impactful minutes of my professional career, because we walked away at the end of that having solved so many issues and motivating and uplifting so many individuals. But it was because I opted to play to my strength of communicating and helping to facilitate that conversation that not only was I able to shine, but everyone else in the room was able to benefit and elevate themselves and where they were at in that moment. And it was so rewarding. So I encourage encourage you and I implore you, think back to those specific moments over the course of your career and your life that really resonate with you. And those should be the moments on your resume. That should be what you talk about, because that is where your passion is going to lie. And that is what is going to come through to employers as they look at you, or as nonprofits decide whether or not they would like you to serve on their boards. That is where it's truly going to come through and shine. Does anyone have a moment like that that they can think back to, that they would like to share with the group today, of something memorable that has stuck with them? And then I would be curious on top of that to know, is it listed on your resume in a way that someone would ask you and prompt you about that? No, I was told y'all were a chatty bunch. No, okay. All right, well, that's fair. Something to think about. Angie, you gonna save me?
Yeah, I'm gonna say yes, since no one else will talk. So this memory just keeps coming up for me over and over again. Back when I worked in residential treatment, one of the kids, Willie, who was probably about 9 at the time, he had enuresis, which means that he would wet himself, and it's not uncommon for children who have been abused to have this issue. And he had an accident, and it was back, we were back in the hallway, and he walks up to me, and it was just that we were the only ones back there, and he was very embarrassed. And I said, no worries, bud, just go ahead and go. It was almost time for showers, and I just go take your shower and throw it in the wash, no big deal, change your clothes, nobody needs to know, right? And he just looked at me with these big eyes and just said, thank you. And that was such a moment for me. And what that reminds me is that I'm not going to change careers. I love doing real estate, and I have no desire to go into that profession again. But contributing to children is something that like feeds my soul. And recently at LBB, Moms on the Move, I got to do a presentation in front of the moms and their kids, and it made my heart so happy. And so because of that, that really has inspired me that I'm going to go ahead and at some point this year take the course to become a quantum leap instructor, which is a course that Gary Keller developed to teach goal setting to kiddos. And so like when Janice, when you were just talking about the foster kids camps, like I'm like, that would be so like, anyway, that's, yeah. So that just keeps just my encouragement. If something keeps coming to your mind that you've done that does play to your strengths, like don't just ignore it, because that memory just keeps coming up for me in just different things lately.
And when
that's
you
why.
share it, I mean, that energy, it rubs off and it shows, and the passion that you have, and it's authentic, right? It speaks to your personal brand and what you not only are effective at doing, but what makes you human, right? And what ties the two together in such a powerful way that could truly benefit any organization or company, right? That you're striving to interact with. So there's so much potential there. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That's
You're welcome.
a great one. So, as we look then, what gives you energy, that is what to do. Absolutely, Janice. I love that very much. Find what you're passionate about and pursue it in a way that complements your strengths. That is the best way to go about it. So as you then transition, you know what your skills are, you know that you need to develop them and practice them. You identify them, whether it's on your resume or just having it written down somewhere, because we all know it's important to write it down. As you transition that to LinkedIn, right? That's your professional face to the world. That's where people are going to go to look you up and learn about you and see what you're about. It is so important to build your own profile on there in a way that shows and speaks to your strengths through these experiences that you are having. And so I will kind of share my screen for a few more minutes here, because I do have LinkedIn pulled up. And I want to kind of walk you through a couple of things on my profile that are examples of what I am referring to. So first and foremost, it's the image and what people are going to see when they come to your page, right? You know the basics. You know that you should have a professional headshot. But then beyond that, what is your background photo? What does it say about you and as a person and as your strength? I love that Mark said that today could have been your presentation day for your small groups, because that's exactly what my current background photo is. This is my small vision group and our presentation day when we presented on the project that we worked on for Bare Necessities to help students, underprivileged students at Hawthorne Elementary School gain access to food and washer and dryer and systems that they were able to put into place in order to process and manage their food orders and inventories. So that was very exciting to be able to do. And so I really thought it was important and timely to have a photo like that speaks to my passion for serving and for leadership. The other thing that I really want to point out is your about section, right? I mean, anyone nowadays can take your job description or can take a canned piece of information and post it in your bio. But what everyone can't do or doesn't do or take the time to do effectively is really create a narrative that speaks to your strength and your passion so that the words truly jump off the page in a way that gives the reader more insight than just, I'm a banker, but rather, give me a whiteboard and a marker and I will solve the world's problems, because that is what I want to do. I want to help you in the ways that I can. And so I probably need to update this a little bit now that I am in a different role, but it gives you a good idea of, having worked on it for a while, a great way to really leverage your strengths. Do that in your featured sections, make sure that you're pinning the items and the awards and the accomplishments, the things that you've done and shared that really define who you are, so that people can recognize that when they're checking you out on LinkedIn. Because we all know, and especially the women in the room, right? Like, we are not good about boasting ourselves and our accomplishments, but on the same hand, we have to be our biggest advocates. We have to be our number one fan, because if we are not putting ourselves out there and putting our own accomplishments out there, who else is going to do it for us, right? So take the reins, be proud, showcase these things in such a way that is not too boastful, right? It's very professional and very tasteful, but it gets the idea across. And then same thing, when you have time, work on your experiences and do it in such a way that it's not a job description, but it really shows your true passions coming through. So just some of the key takeaways that I have kind of uncovered or unsourced through my time in vision and in schooling and in various positions and beyond. I know I've thrown a lot of information out at you all today. What questions or thoughts, does anybody have anything that they'd like to share or things that they're doing that's really working for them? No.
I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that about section. I think, talking about yourself and what you bring to the table is sometimes difficult for people that are high achievers, just because they want their achievement to speak to their success. And sometimes you do have to pat yourself on the back, because other people, you care more about yourself than anybody else cares about you. So if you don't talk about yourself, then people aren't going to know. You just got to know how to word it. And I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we, at one point in my life, I was like, well, people know I'm awesome, right? I shouldn't have to say it. I shouldn't have to put it out there. But, then you kind of realize like, oh, if I want people outside of my bubble to know that I'm awesome, maybe I should put a little bit more about myself out there in order to make that possible. So Janice says, what are the benefits of LinkedIn if you're not really looking for a job, but wanting to connect with others? In my case, wanting to connect with folks that might be passionate about serving vulnerable children. That's a great question. And I think I would encourage everyone to be active and engaged in their networks, even when you're not looking for a position, because it's all about relationship building, and it's about building, again, that credibility, because you never know when that connection today and where it's going to lead tomorrow. What you can do for other people, what services or words of wisdom you can provide, or piece of information they might share, and you can be the conduit to introduce them to someone else. So it's putting that servant leadership hat on, and really choosing to be on it and be active and engaged to serve others, with the understanding that karma is going to be good, right? It's going to pay you back, and eventually it's going to come forward. So I would encourage you to get on, build your profile, build your credibility, build your connections, because you never know where that connection is going to lead. Great question.
I had a question.
Yeah, Brian.
Earlier, while you were talking, you mentioned how important it is to fail often and fail hard. And that's definitely something that I've had to get more and more comfortable with as I've started my career. How do you go about determining what you're supposed to learn from your failure, especially in instances where you don't necessarily get feedback? So I hope that question made sense. Maybe this example would help. If I applied for a job and maybe I just never hear back, or I get an interview and I don't hear about, why I didn't get chosen or whatever. How do you sit down and go, okay, well, maybe that wasn't necessarily a failure on my part, but how do you go about trying to learn from failure?
Yeah, solicit feedback. In all cases, whether it's the applying for the job that you didn't get and maybe you didn't hear from the recruiter, you're reaching out to that recruiter either on LinkedIn or email or phone and being like, hey, thanks for your time. I know I didn't move forward in the process, and I can appreciate that maybe I wasn't the right fit. I'd love to learn, what were you looking for? Or what could I be building on as I look to apply for future positions? I think don't be afraid to ask for help and feedback, because that puts the other person in a position where they feel like, oh, I'm kind of an authority right now, right? It toots their ego a little bit, but it does give you some more insight into what the opportunity could look like for you and what you could do to continue to be better. In the one example where I can think of, in a more recent failure, it was and has continued to be a lot of communication with those around me in that inner circle that were a part of the experience, or were affected by the experience. And it's continuing to ask them, what could we do differently? How can we apply the lesson of this failure to the current situation, right? Like, what did we learn from that can help make this point in time even better and help us avoid a mistake moving forward? So it's communicating, it's putting your heads together with other people, and it's really that self-awareness, right? Of, hey, I know that I failed, and this is kind of, this current situation is triggering me back to a failure that I just had. What is it, and think about it and reflect on it to find those similarities. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Anything else?
Justine, hopefully my mic's a little better now. You just went through a transition yourself. What is an aha moment that you had as you were exploring this, looking at your strengths and trying to communicate what your passions are about?
Oh my goodness. Very timely, right? So for me, it's been a very long journey of trying to understand, where I want to go and what I want to do. But at the end of the day, for me, it came back to relationships, right? And it honestly stems back from relationships that I developed in Vision. Had it not been for developing relationships with people like Elizabeth Wade and Scott Schneider, who is now my boss, I would not have understood or had the perspective of the fact that I could be in this position, right? It was my mindset of, well, my strengths aren't in finance. Like, are you sure about this? You really want to hand me the keys to a bank and you think that this is going to work? But it's the fact that we were vulnerable together and I shared my strengths, and they were able to see those in our daily interactions over the course of time, that really gave us all the opportunity to reflect on the fact that, hey, you ran a 1 million square foot facility and you generated 1 million in leasing income in the year, and you made the center NOI of 8 million a year. You can manage a branch, right? Like, there are similarities there that I was not able to see from my perspective, but they were able to see from theirs. So because I pulled them in and because I was vulnerable and I had these conversations, they were like, yeah, you really need to apply, right? So good question.
Yeah, great
Continuous
stuff. Thank you.
Thanks.
That can be challenging for all of us when you look at understanding your transferable skills. That goes back to your previous advice, seek feedback constantly.
Absolutely. You don't know what you don't know, right? I didn't know, anything about the banking world, and, except from an arm's distance, and I had a banker, and, but I didn't know if what I knew and my strengths would really apply to that. But it's about seeking out and understanding and learning and having the right conversations and being in the right place at the right time. So thank you all so much for your time today and for giving me a comfortable environment to share my experiences and to be vulnerable with you. I hope that this time was impactful and meaningful for you and well spent. If you do have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. Connect with me on LinkedIn for sure. My contact info is on there, and I'd be happy to continue the conversation on or offline in whatever I can do to serve you. So thank you all for your time, and thank you to Mark for the invitation. I hope I served you well.
Thank you guys so much. Justine, we appreciate your time and expertise and being able to share with all of us today. It means an awful lot, both for, I think, us individually as well as the Vision program. We love having our alumni come back to be able to share and again, make connections again with our new class members. So appreciate that so much. I also want to again encourage all of you guys to make sure that you continue to be not only self-aware of what your skills are, but again, make sure that you're thinking about those other things and those other assets and things of those that are around you. My wife and I had a discussion today about our cook, who is a very high D. And as he leads the other people in our kitchen, they're thinking that he's just really arrogant and really a jerk. And so we need to make him self-aware of some of those things so that he understands that he's managing other high I people or other high S people, and how to be able to best communicate, bringing some of those skills and back to him. We had that conversation today. So again, those are great skills and great things that continue to transfer over in different areas.
Guys, I have a tip for your coach. Just tell him before he says anything critical, compliment him first.
Yeah.
Rule of thumb.
Hey, again, thank you guys for taking your time and sharing it with us tonight. I'll be getting information out to all of you then for our next month's program. We're working on trying to get the details of it worked out. Skip Stevens is going to be our presenter then next month. So again, we look forward to being able to have Skip join in. I'll be getting you the details and the dates, time, Zoom links, and all that good fun stuff here in the next week or so. So again, thank you guys for your time. Look forward to joining together next month.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Justine.
Well, sorry about the technical glitches, Mark, but I hope it
All
was
right. You'll need to hit the stop record, I think.